Hello, welcome to my second video. This video is all about me talking about my journey with vintage and how I got into it. And basically, I can start the lullaby by saying that the very first encounter I ever encountered with vintage was thanks to my mom. And it was because my mom actually was going through my grandmother's garage and she found some pieces that she thought I would like, and I was really into blazers in like 2009 and 10. I really loved blazers, and so she came across a few blazers that she had when she was in high school and she gave them to me, and then she gave me like a couple of other pieces that I still currently have to this day, and they're some of my favorite pieces that I would never get rid of because they mean so much to me, and partially because they belong to my mom, and then the other part is because that is the piece or the pieces that started my love for vintage. So if you're not really sure what vintage is, let's do a quick little definition, okay? So basically, to make something vintage, it has to be 20 years or older. And then once it hits the 100-year mark, it is then an antique. There are many different things of vintage, like you can have vintage furniture, baby clothes, cars, anything created basically can be vintage. I love everything vintage, but right now I haven't gotten into vintage furniture or antique furniture or cars or anything like that, but I typically stick to things I can wear. For example, my earrings are vintage and they came from a thrift store in Los Angeles. My top is vintage, I believe from the 70s, and I got it from Silver Lake Flea Market. And then so are my jeans. They're from the 70s, 60s era, and they are too from Silver Lake Flea. And so that is typically how I dress, and it started by, like I said, my mom. So moving on, my very first job, first time being employed, I worked at a thrift store. It was really cool because I didn't work on the floor of the thrift store. I actually worked in the back. So I got to see everybody's donations right in front of me, and I got to pick through it and see if it was good and if it wasn't. And sometimes it would be pieces that we couldn't sell, but I love them, and so I was like, just let them price them and get them to the floor so I can buy them. And I'm not sure if we were really allowed to do that, but sometimes my coworkers would do it for me, and I was so excited because I have pieces that I love so much that I'm pretty sure would never have gone on the floor because they weren't good enough, but they're really dope and they're vintage and they're beautiful. So moving from there, I went to college, and then I began to just thrift in Miami, where I went to college, and then when I would go back home, I would thrift at my old job. Then I found other thrift stores, and then my beloved Mima is what I call her. She's my grandmother. She's my stepmother's mom, which is the same mom that gave me my very first piece of vintage. So thanks to them, I was turned on into this world, and so she given me pieces from her mother. So I have like great grandmother pieces that are like family heirlooms, and so it really began a bond with me because I started to feel very connected to something bigger than me. I know that that seems a little dramatic, but being in the era where we have fast fashion and we have everything at our fingertips is really cool to buy vintage or get vintage pieces because of the price sometimes is better, the quality is definitely better, and that's why I typically love to buy my vintage pieces from a thrift store because it is priced very reasonable. Sometimes so great that it's like mind-blowing, the pieces that I found in thrift stores. But now that my taste is elevating and I'm growing, I've started to go to flea markets. I live in Los Angeles where we have a plethora of vintage stores. Like, there's so many neighborhoods that's just filled with so many dope, different, cool, exciting thrift stores and vintage stores, but specifically vintage stores. There's so many in Los Angeles, and the area that I work in for my day job has so many that I've been trying to visit them as much as I can. And in this video, I wanted to mention some of my favorites that I've discovered as far as thrift stores. So I've gone to LA Road thrift store, which is in Eagle Rock, which is very close to Silver Lake. I've also gone to the Saint De La Paul thrift store, and I have a haul that I'm going to do for them as well because theirs is so dope, so dope. It's so huge, and it's another thrift store. One of my favorite vintage stores is The Way We Wore. store. They're lovely. I love them so much. They have such good designer pieces that are very, very, very reasonably priced. Sometimes it can be pricey, but you have to think about it. Like, it's designer. So if you went into Gucci right now, you would definitely spend for a current piece thousands of dollars. So if you spend $500, $300, $400 on one piece that is, you know, first time Ford collection and things like that, you are getting a deal. So I love that store. And then also one of my other beloved thrift stores is in Venice, and I love them because they're really dope. They have a lot of 70s pieces, and it's called, there's actually two stores. One is called Gotta Have It, and it is really, really dope. It's been there for a long time. It has new owners now, but they have really, really dope pieces. I love how clean it is and how curated it is. They have a lot of dead stock, like swimming suits from the 70s and 80s and 60s. They have a lot of jewelry, like they have a lot of costume jewelry. So when it comes to vintage, you can actually get a lot of things that would be kind of fast fashion, but of that era. And they didn't have fast fashion really, they just had more price friendly clothing. We were kind of the originators of like fast fashion. So it's still not bad for the environment if you buy things that were more reasonably priced back then. So I have a lot of rings like that. I have a lot of costume jewelry and t-shirts and stuff like that. And that is a really, really, really good store if you're in the Los Angeles area to go to. And then there's also called Boardwalk Vintage, which is literally on the boardwalk in Venice, and they have really, really dope pieces. They have really good denim. So both of the owners are really, really cool, and they have really, really dope vibey clothes and things that are very exciting. When I do want to shop or when I'm looking for inspiration or anything like that, those would be the stores that I like go to. And I know the owners, so I also love them as people because they're really nice. So I would say those are like some of the experiences that I've had in Los Angeles. And then I'm still getting acclimated in the Los Angeles world. In Ohio, I have one of my favorite thrift stores. It's called Value World. A lot of my thrifted collection, some of my dopest pieces came from Value World. And then some of my other doper pieces came from a store called Uniques, which is my favorite as well. But my very favorite one, which was my first job, is now closed. So I really just wanted to kind of have a video talking about my vintage experience and like why I got into vintage and what I like about vintage clothes. I really like that I can just experience something new. I like that I can create new ideas. I like that I can make it contemporary, which is my point at life really. I wear a lot of things that are inspired by a time but not lost in that time. So I really love the fact that in a thrift store I don't have to break my wallet, but I can definitely get something really cool. And then I do like that when I do want to splurge on something, I can know that it's the original designer's ideas or it's a creative director that really understood and they aren't trying to just do something for hype, which no disrespect to current designers, but sometimes I feel like a lot of their fashion is more hype driven than it is about craftsmanship and really creating something that is timeless and something that adds value. So that's why I really, really love vintage. And my next phase that I want to get into is buying things that are like home and art that are vintage and just really having a sustainable living. I do buy a lot of thrift stuff at this current time and vintage things at this current time. As you can see, my closet, this isn't actually all of my clothes. I have more clothes still in Ohio, a lot more clothes actually still in Ohio that I need to ship to LA very, very soon. But because I do blog, shameless plug, and because I have a lot of friends that like model or do videos or stuff like that, so I like to extend my closet to them so that they can create things. I have two siblings that are models, and then I have another sibling that does music. So because I have siblings that are all creative, I've given them pieces for different projects or I've taken from them. So it's kind of a very cool thing. I'm the eldest, but I still learn from my brothers and my sister, and they still give me such dope pieces, and it's just a cool exchange and it's very fun. And I just feel that clothes aren't determined by gender, they're determined by who wears them. And I really feel that you should always wear what you love. So that's pretty much why I have a continuous love for vintage and thrifting and everything, even secondhand. So that's pretty much a little bit of a one-on-one about why I love vintage and how it started and how I feel about everything. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And also, if you want to know more about like where I shop or my process when I go thrifting, leave a comment below, because I would love to tell you my little thought processes on how I get so much stuff when I thrift. I really enjoy making a video about just talking about thrift stuff, so it would be really fun to talk to you later about new stuff, about different stuff. So let me know, and see you in my next video. Bye!